Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Cole-Smith, Director of Diversity at the Institute. Today, I am here in the beautiful city of Erie, Pennsylvania, with Tim Nicastro, President and CEO of Erie Insurance. He will be interviewing for the BIIC Founding Founders Spotlight because Erie Insurance was one of our first founding sponsors for BIIC. Hello, Tim.
Hello,
it is
Amy.
so great to be here.
Welcome to our fair city.
Thank you so much. Yeah. This building is amazing, and the energy here is absolutely just mind-boggling of people coming back to work. So how did we get that energy going in here?
Well, timing is everything. So we began to build this building prior to the pandemic. We completed it during the pandemic, and we couldn't open it. There was nobody to come into the building. But as we've been returning employees to the office, this is where they're landing, and they really can't believe that they're in an office building. As you can see, there's so much natural light, there's so much great flow, the mood is really great here, and you're here at a great time. You're in the summertime, it's hard to beat.
Awesome. So even with the energy that I have felt from the people within this building, it made me more excited to speak with you today. So let's get right into
All right, let's do
our interview.
Okay.
So can you just tell me about yourself and your role at Erie and kind of just like your, how you got into your role in your insurance journey?
Sure. Okay. My insurance journey actually began in public accounting. I came out of school with an accounting degree, became a CPA, and I was one of those really popular auditors for 10 years with one of the national firms. I went to manufacturing and their finance function, a local company in Erie, for 4 years, and I started at Erie 26 years ago. Started out as head of internal audit, once again Mr. Popular, but I was in finance as the controller for about 12 years. Then I moved into operations for a couple of years, then into sales for a couple of years. Now that's a weird journey, accounting and finance to sales. It's like man biting dog. But I found that I really enjoyed it an awful lot. And then in 2016, I was appointed president and CEO of Erie.
Very, very nice. So with you becoming CEO and president of Erie and just the different partnerships you've been able to have with Erie and external partners, what made Erie decide to become a founding sponsor of the Black Insurance Industry Collective?
Really kind of coming back to timing again. Timing is everything. And we have spent, I guess it was 2009, we kicked off a more formalized DEI program in the company. And I would characterize that first decade of work as very bountiful, very productive, but really focused on education and celebration, okay? And so we felt good that we were diving into DEI, but at the end of the day, we found ourselves at a place where we needed greater activation.
Right.
And so as we're turning that corner, we know that we have to broaden the network of contacts we have. We have to broaden the way we think about recruitment. We have to broaden the way we think about our communities and about suppliers, et cetera. And so this really comes at a perfect time for us. And I'm happy to say that one of our vice presidents, Kevin Ray from Learning and Development, was right on the ground floor. He told me a story today about his first introduction. He was approached by some parties. He wasn't sure it was legitimate. Right. And he called out to one of his contacts at the Institute. They said, no, this is serious. They want to get started. It's actually perfect time because as we talk about our strategy as a company, and I'll get into this a little bit more later, it perfectly aligns with our business strategy to become involved here. And so it's more than the right thing to do. It's something that we know has tremendous business value as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So how do you see the mission and work of BIIC influencing the overall industry?
Well, it's not really a surprise when you look at our industry that we are historically a white-driven industry. And the world is different today, right? And so as the population is changing, we know that there's greater opportunity to diversify our workforce, to be able to reach customers. And so we understand the investment that's necessary. We understand the level of activity that we need to gain to be able to diversify our workforce.
Right.
So the work that's going on here will help to produce talent that can aspire to those levels. But I think the thing that's really unique about the approach that's being taken here is it's going to couple that educational work and background with the mentorship that's so important.
Yes.
I mean, I myself have been a victim of mentorship throughout my career, and it's been extremely helpful. So I think that the ingredients are all right to account for the different facets of how people can progress through an organization. And the focus on the black community is really important, because when you look at the population of the United States and you look at the population of our industry, they're quite different from one another.
Definitely. Thank you for that. So can you tell me a bit about the DEI initiatives going on at Erie?
Wow, there's a lot of them.
Okay. That's good news to hear.
Yeah. We started, as I mentioned, in 2009, and we began by forming employee resource groups. Today we call them business resource groups. And they were really predominantly focused on education and celebration, as I mentioned earlier. What we've done since then is we have formed a number of affinity groups. And the affinity groups we've charged with creating greater levels of activity, and not just activity for activity's sake, but activity that's going to produce results. So as we look at our supplier diversity, we look at our employees diversity, we look at our agency plant. We're an independent agency company. So agents sell for us voluntarily.
Right.
They can sell for any company that will allow independent agents to sell their product. We know that we have a tremendous opportunity to reach a broader base of customers, but we aren't going to do it until we have agents who understand those customers, until we have employees that understand those agents. So these things all have to work together, and that's really the phase that we're in now. So we built this solid foundation over those years, but in some ways we let ourselves off the hook a little bit. We said it's okay to have these celebrations. Let's celebrate Diwali. Let's celebrate Black History Month, etc.
Right.
And they were great things. Believe me, we have had a lot of hours invested in creating events and opportunities, and a lot of employee participation in those opportunities. But we want to see the organization take that next step, which is actually change the look of the organization.
I love that. I love that. I definitely love your answer to that. Just doing more actionable work, which I think all can appreciate.
Yeah.
So as you move into this phase of activation, what's next for Erie in its DEI journey?
There's a lot on the docket, all right?
Okay.
I think you met our Chief Diversity Officer, Chris Marsh,
Yes.
while you were here today. I was able to bring Chris into the fold and appoint her Chief Diversity Officer about a year ago. And prior to that, Chris was in charge of our community and economic outreach in Erie. So if you kind of back up to that first, that role really focused with our executive team on how to revitalize Erie, Pennsylvania as a community, because we've been struggling here, and how do we make investments in this community to help, revitalize it and bring it back.
Right.
And so, kind of her background and her understanding and the body of work she was doing, I felt was a natural fit with DEI, because if we're trying to revitalize the city, let's revitalize the city that's going to be here tomorrow, that more diverse city. So we brought those pieces together, and it's really worked out. Now Chris is busy as all heck, but it's worked out extremely well. Her and her team now have a broad sphere of influence on things that they're doing. So what's ahead for us is a couple of things. We're really moving ourselves into an era of accountability, right? So it's one thing to have a celebration. It's another thing to make sure that when you're interviewing a diverse pool of candidates. And you're interviewing them with people who maybe themselves are diverse. So you increase your opportunity for hiring, both externally and internally. As we have promotions, we have to maybe be more mindful of those things. So we're really looking at our practices and making sure that those practices fit our objectives. We're looking at those same practices with supplier diversity. You can't buy something from a diverse supplier or minority-owned business if none of them are on your vendor list, right? So we're challenging ourselves, and we're taking that next step toward accountability. The other thing we're doing is with the revitalization efforts I mentioned, they were predominantly focused in downtown originally, because it was part of a city master plan that said Erie needs to revitalize itself by starting in the core.
Okay.
It's like when you start to get in shape again, you get a little sluggish. The first thing you got to work on is that core strength, right? And we are headquartered down here. We're the largest company in the county of Erie, and so we've taken the lead in that revitalization effort. We've done it very mindfully, though.
Okay.
We were criticized early on. We formed a group called the Erie Downtown Development Corporation, and it's comprised of a number of businesses and charitable foundations and some of the local hospitals, the local universities, and we've created a fund of money available to restore some of the areas in downtown. We were initially criticized with gentrification allegations. And we said, we're not trying to drive anybody out of downtown.
Right.
We want more people in downtown. we're actually diversifying downtown. It wasn't as focused on the African American community though. And so what's ahead and what's new, I mean, that effort is going to continue. We are going to continue to attract diverse businesses into downtown, but we're also looking at an adjacent neighborhood here in Erie.
Okay.
There's an area on what we call the Parade Street corridor, which at one time was the central city and a very thriving business community for the city. Well, it's fallen into disrepair, into blight, and the neighborhood adjacent to it, which is adjacent to our campus, has been neglected for 50 years or more. And so we're undertaking an initiative with some local African American leaders, and we have said to them, we can't lead this effort. We need people who understand this community to lead the effort. And so we're partnering very closely with them, investing our resources, investing our time. Chris and her team are really helping this East Side Renaissance take flight. So that's another big area of initiative for us. I could go on all day.
I can listen all day.
All right. On the supplier side, the same thing. As I mentioned, if you don't have a diverse pool of vendor candidates, you're not going to have any minority-owned business partners. And so we're taking a good look at that, and we're doing a lot more research. We're introducing a lot more opportunity for minority-owned businesses to do business with us. And as you know, our industry spends a lot of money on a lot of things.
Yes.
We're holding ourselves accountable. Guess what? Some of those businesses are going to be minority-owned. We need to find them.
Very good. Well, it was a pleasure, such a pleasure and an honor to speak with you today. And I love the fact that Erie is doing more than just putting it on paper. They're actually doing actionable steps when it comes to DEI. So I appreciate the efforts and the plans and strategic plan that it's embedded in that Erie is doing. Thank you all for joining us today. Once again, I'm Amy Cole Smith, DEI Director at the Institutes, and I'm here with Tim Nicastro, President and CEO of Erie Insurance. We will see you next time for our founding sponsor spotlight.